Cool. So I'll tell you a little bit about myself. I was introduced quite nicely, so I'll keep that short. I graduated in 2003, and I started practicing in what you would call traditional private practice, mom and pop kind of thing, from 2003 to 2009. And I'll give you a little bit of history because I think that will be beneficial to all of you guys. In 2003, when I first started, I went to a place where, although we were really busy, I didn't really have a good, mentor. It wasn't that, the doctor wasn't willing to do it. She just didn't have time, and she had young children, and she had to go home and, take care of that aspect of her life. And, one of the key things that I feel I could have gotten more was that mentorship part, the part where, do we actually know what we don't know kind of thing. So, that's one of the things we'll touch on later, but keep that in mind about how not just looking at the best opportunity in terms of the actual work, but looking at the opportunity as a whole where, you're getting somebody that mentors you, that knows all the pitfalls, that knows all the ins and outs, and that can really help speed up your success and also prevent any major failures. And so, in 2006, I started at another practice where I actually met my mentor, the guy who taught me everything that I know that I've used to succeed in, my practice here in the States and, with Aspen in general. So in 2009, I came down to the States from Canada, and, I started practicing in Iowa, and I started purchasing practices the way that the Aspen model works. If, I'm sure some of you guys have questions about it. We can go over that in your questions as well. But the way it works is the dentist owns the practice, and Aspen pretty much supports us in terms of all the administrative stuff, all the things that obviously we may not be that good at, advertising, all that kind of stuff, getting patients and doing that sort of thing. So, when when you look at a partner, you want that partner to be a specialist in their field. And the way that the model works here, and the way it works for me really well, is I'm the specialist in the dentistry. I'm the one that's providing the care to the patients. And in terms of what I'm providing, it's pretty much the same as what I was doing in Canada as a private dentist, mom and pop shop. The care that I was providing to the patient sitting beside them in the chair is pretty much the same as what I'm doing here. So what I gain is actually the expertise of all the business side, So again, you can kind of think of it like a mentor, like the DSO model, if you're looking at that as an option. The DSO model, if you find the right partner, just like anything, it can be really beneficial. So, right now I own 7 practices in Iowa and Illinois, and in next year I'll probably be in the 10 to 11 practice range. I'm actually involved in 2 or 3 practices currently that I'm looking at purchasing. So that's kind of me in a nutshell. We'll kind of get rolling with today's event. Basically, what we want to do is talk about all the things you can use and what you can, the skills that you need to be successful and to eliminate all the issues and the pitfalls that can happen. So if we kind of speed through some of these slides, I'm not going to discuss too much with the slides, but they're there as a reference for everyone. And one of the things we want to discuss is basically the overall dynamics of you, the team, and the patient, and then how that kind of combines into one solid package. Okay, so I wanted to kind of start off with, let's go to this picture here. So when we look at this picture, and I've used this in some of my other presentations, when we look at this picture, we see pretty much, the first thing most people see is that guy and his tooth. And, we see that spot on his tooth. And what this shows, the Colgate ad, it's an awesome ad. I really use this a lot. What that shows is what impact the teeth have on how we are perceived, how our patients are perceived, and how they basically live and what society thinks of them. So one thing we don't notice is this lady has 3 arms, okay? And, we don't notice that because the first thing we see is this. So this goes basically to the value of what we provide. And we're not just providing pain and, fixing teeth and making it look good. We're actually providing a whole lot more. And when you start looking at it, when you start looking at things deeper, when you start looking at, where what we are actually giving the patient, I'll tell you a little story. I had just a couple of months ago, I had this patient. He came in, we looked at his teeth. He had really bad teeth. We ended up, basically very broken down teeth. He didn't want to fix it. He was about 55, 56 years old. And, I started talking to him, and he told me that he hadn't smiled since he fell off his bike in grade 7. Okay, so, many, many years. He went through his whole childhood, his adolescence, and his adulthood not smiling. He would cover his face. He wouldn't smile. People would not see him as, a happy person, which he was. And so what happened is over time he became conditioned to be somebody that he was actually not. And, what we ended up doing, we did some surgery. We took out his teeth. We gave him some nice dentures. And when we actually did all that, his daughter, and he also told me like he was only there because his daughter was getting married in like 3-4 weeks, and he wanted to have good pictures with her at her ceremony. So he wasn't even doing it for himself. He was doing it for his daughter. And we did the work, and we gave him some nice teeth. They look really nice. It was a complete change from where he was. And his daughter started crying when she picked him up and saw his smile. And she said, I'm never going to forget this. She said, "Oh my God, Dad, I've never seen you smile. This is the first time I saw you smile." So, that's the impact that we can have. And that's the impact we do have. And if you feel that passion, if you feel what you're providing the patients, then you'll gain so much more out of what we do. And when you do that, no matter what you do that day, you're going to go and, you're going to come out feeling better. It's going to make you do better work. It's going to make you happier. You're going to be that much of a better person and that much of a better dentist, a better boss, everything. Your teams are going to be energized, and we'll go over that as well. But, when we start looking at some of the things, we're also providing a whole lot of benefits to health. So that picture just showed the guy's tooth with a little mark on it, but, we're providing a lot more than that. So when you start thinking about what we do, start, give yourself a pat on the back, because we do provide a lot. And when we start valuing it ourselves, then other people will value it. Our teams will value it. Our patients will value it. Okay, so let's go on a little bit more. One of the things that we look at, especially for, a young dentist or somebody coming out, is, finding a good balance in, in life and work. And some of the things that we'll talk about is, those sorts of things. So let's go on. basically one of the issues that we do have is, going through all the people that want a piece of you, basically, patients, staff, everybody who's looking at, us, and we have a lot of demands. We basically come out of school and we've been fairly sheltered, and now we're kind of exposed to all these things. So again, that's where, getting a good mentor, getting somebody that can show you the way makes a big difference, because we can't learn it all right away. We can't learn it in the first day or first week. And if somebody already knows all these things, it's very easy to kind of avoid the issues. So, it kind of goes back to that initial thing about getting the right people around you. Okay. So, and then, basically at the end of the day, we're trying, my biggest skill, and especially coming out of school, my biggest skill was treating patients. I learned a lot of things along the way. I learned a lot of things from, the dentists I work with, my colleagues, doing things with within the community, with dental organizations and things like that. So, you pick up a lot of things that when you first come out, and even now, at some point you just want to see the patients. You don't want to deal with all the other stuff. So again, that's one of the nice things that that the DSO model allows us to do. Okay, so let's go through this here. Now, the other thing is, you want to also try to balance your career with family and life. And, I'll tell you a story. I live with my parents. We have a pretty big house. I live with my brother and his wife and his kids. We have, it's kind of a zoo sometimes here, but there's 4 kids. I'm sure you can't hear them. I'm in the basement, but they provide so much for us. The little kids, we have from 6 to 2 and in between. So getting the right balance is key, whatever that balance is for you. Obviously I can't tell you that in a webinar, but finding the right balance and finding it for you is the key. So, at the end of the day, you have to be happy. So one of the things I try to do for especially the doctors that come and, that I have exposure to, is I try to find what works for them, So one of the things that you want to do is look for, first you got to value yourself, kind of like what we had discussed in the beginning. Value what you are doing. When people value what they're doing and they feel like they're giving something more than, just a service, if you feel like you're giving somebody their smile back, their happiness back, if you feel like they're getting, something more than that, then you go home and you're satisfied with your day. And, you go home, you play with your kids, and that's great too. And if you feel like you're going to work and you're just doing MOs and DOs and, I got a root canal to do at 3 p.m. and it kind of drains you, then that's when it starts affecting the other parts of your life. So one of my things that I try to teach, especially the younger guys, is value what you're doing in your profession, because that will energize you. You'll feel happier, you'll feel better, and that goes to, all the other things. A lot of the stories we hear about dentists being sad and depressed is because I feel like they don't really feel like they're contributing anything to society, So they're just there to work. They're just repairmen. They see a hole and they fix it, right? So you have to see if you want to get past that. You have to decide if you want to be a repairman or if you want to be somebody that elevates somebody's life. And you have that choice. You have that opportunity, and you have the power to do that. And when I first started, I didn't think I had that, and somebody had to tell me that I could do that. And again, that was my mentor, and the doctor that I really look up to. And he didn't teach me everything. He gave me the spark, and he gave me the start, and he gave me the realization that I could be more, and I could be more fulfilled. And I have the choice. It's not the patient that comes in the door that decides. It's you that decides. You have the power to be who you are, whether you want to be somebody that provides exceptional work, and that's providing something more than just a filling, right? And obviously fillings are important too. We got to do those, and I'm not saying not to do fillings, but when you're doing that filling, if it's just a filling to you, then you won't be happy after doing it enough. If you can translate that to something else, something more meaningful, then you'll get something more out of that. And then that translates to all these things that we're kind of talking about, how it relates to your mental health. This is an awesome saying: secure your own oxygen mask before assisting others. If you think about it, you have to put in, you have to put the effort into you first. And if you are happy, if you have something, then you can give that to somebody else. If you don't have the happiness within you, if you don't have the fulfillment, if you are not abundant, then you're not going to be able to give that to anybody. Okay, so if you have something, then you can give it to somebody. If you have a lot of something, then you're happy to give it to people. Like one of the reasons people ask me, okay, well, why are you doing this? Why are you, spending your evening 8 o'clock talking to these guys and, just go watch a movie or something, is because I'm passionate about what I do. And I want to share that with people. I feel like when I was at that point, when I was first starting, and I just thought dentistry was filling holes and doing endos and things like that, I really didn't get it. And somebody told me, and it wasn't just one person, but over time I realized more and more that the more you get fulfillment, the happier you'll be, and the happiness goes. So I'm happy to share. I'm happy to spend my time here with all of you guys to discuss these things, which have made a huge impact on my life. So that's an awesome thing. Secure your own oxygen mask before assisting others. You can't help anybody if you can't breathe. So that's why they tell you in the plane, stick your thing on first, and then you can help the person beside you. But if you're not able to breathe, you're not able to help anybody. So it's a great saying that we saw. So we'll kind of go through this. I think we had kind of discussed all that. The other thing is basically, you want to try to be as efficient in your practice. And again, that goes back to, building things that are efficient. And sometimes it's as simple as, I want to see this patient and that patient and that patient and that patient. So if I build those systems, and if you go into a system that's already working really well, then you don't have to invent the wheel. So again, you want to find a place where people are happy to share their ideas with you. Demand that. Demand that, I want to be in a place, wherever it is, whether it's here in Aspen or anywhere, any place, any private practice, demand that. I didn't demand that in the beginning. I just went wherever I thought was a good spot for me, right? And that's one of the mistakes I made. I didn't say, hey, I need more. I need more than just the patient. I need guidance, right? And all these things kind of tie into that. Where are you finding the guidance? So whenever you go to your interviews or you're looking at offices, whether it's private practice or DSO or whatever, start thinking about, can this person make me better? And what can I learn? Are they open to it? Ask them, are you going to be able to mentor somebody? Because I feel like that's what I need, right? And, you'll get a good idea if they can or not. So it's as simple as just asking, So a lot of these issues that we see is, you want to try to get the fastest path to success with the least issues. So let's go through a couple of these. That's, again, where the DSO models, where if you think about it, if you look at all the industries, if you see eye care, that's going towards this. I mean, that happened about 20, 25 years ago. There were a lot of mom and pop, optical stores, and those are gone. It's not that anybody was doing anything bad. It's just they weren't efficient. And, that's what's happening in dentistry. As a private practice owner, especially in the previous generation or the one before that, all you have to do was go into town, turn on the lights and put up a sign, and you're busy, right? And one of the things that happens with us in dentistry is we're kind of sheltered because we do so well, We don't realize all the efficiencies and the mistakes and the things that end up holding us back. So it's not that we're not successful in private practice, we are. And that kind of holds us back. It stops us from learning. It stops us from gaining more. It stops us from learning about business and how, patient flow works and all that kind of stuff. So, advertising, marketing, all that kind of stuff, it stops us because we are fairly successful. So we don't pay as much attention because we don't need to sometimes, right? But that way of thinking is slowly going away. So we're actually going out where if you're in that private practice, which I was, private practice, I was doing fine. I was doing quite well, but nowhere near the success and the freedom that I have now. So, that's where we get to the, invest in yourself. You are going to be the one that will carry you. So if you spend the energy, if you spend the time, kind of like what you're doing today, learning about things beyond what we're taught in school, if you invest in yourself, you will never go wrong. You will always be better off. Whatever you want to invest in, whether it's the physical skills, whether it's the leadership or mental issues, whether it's psychology, which I learned quite a lot of in the last 10, 15 years. When we work on patients, it's a lot more psychology than fixing the teeth. So, invest in yourself. You're always going to be better off. So, we'll talk about, kind of how to be a good leader. So again, this goes back to the investing in yourself. I know we're kind of, we got quite a bit here left, but let's run through this. I think I've kind of gone through a couple of these slides already, right? So one of the things that, we want to kind of talk about is leadership. And I was talking to one of the girls that wants to become a manager today, and we were discussing leadership and what makes a good leader. Are leaders born, or are they, is it learned? Nobody came out of as a baby being a good leader. They had to learn it, just like the skills you guys learned, just like the skills I learned in school. I was in a good I didn't do good endos before I got into dentistry. I didn't even know what it was. So I learned that skill. And leadership is the same thing. You have to learn that skill. You have to put in the time and the effort to kind of go and, basically find that skill and see, if you're able to do that. And, this is a nice thing. Basically, one of the things we kind of look at is communication. How are you communicating with your teams and, your staff and the patients? The patients will not always have, the patients and the teams, they don't always have the same goals. They have very separate goals. You have to realize that, and then, kind of manage that as you can, because, your goals and your motivation will be very different than the teams and the patients. Okay, I think we had kind of discussed mentorship quite a bit, so let's pass through this stuff here. You know, one of the things I really believe in is walking the talk. Okay, so this is where if you set some rules, if you set some ground rules, it can be as simple as swearing in the office. You know, I don't swear in the office. I don't let anybody swear. We don't do it in the break room. You know, things like this. You dress professionally. You talk to the patient professionally. You don't talk against your DAs in front of the patients. You know, we don't say things like, "Oh, we're out of this thing." You know, so you know that doesn't look good to you or your teams. You always have to make your team look good in front of the patient, and they'll do the same for you. You know, so these are all just basic things that on some level are obvious, but it doesn't happen that often. You know, I'll tell you that from personal experience. You know, you really have to be cognizant of these issues and not get you know, too wrapped up. You have to make the rules for your team, and then you have to follow those yourself. You know, so when you do that, then they'll have more respect for you. You know, basically, this is more administrative stuff, but like, you know, we have a lot of built-in vehicles where we use for communications, the DSO, you know, Aspen Dental, for instance. We have, you know, so many different modules, training, all that kind of stuff. You know, there's different levels where, you know, there's office managers, there are regional managers, there's hygiene managers. So there's a lot of people that will help me deliver the message that I need delivered. And it's my message, it's not their message. You know, so if I need to have this or this done, I say, hey, let's talk about it, let's discuss things. You know, there's a lot of trust involved there. You know, so you have to build relationships and trust. And if you can do that, then you can start delegating and going over, you know, we'll talk about that in a little bit here. So let's pass this here. That's the next good segue, delegation. Delegation was one of my worst things that I used to do. You know, one of the things we do as dentists is we're kind of control freaks. We try to control everything. And when we do that, we're not as efficient because the people around us are just as good as us in their tasks. And if, you know, what I tell people is if I hire somebody or if I have a regional manager for, you know, this office, and if I can't trust them to do their job, they're not the right person to do it, right? If I don't trust them with the message that I want delivered, I should get somebody else, right? And that's where you, at the end of the day, you have to let go of, you know, some things. If you want to succeed, if you want to get to a certain level, you know, with me right now, I have 7 practices. I have to let go. With one practice, I was much more hands-on. I was very, you know, but once you build the systems, once you build, you know, enough of the gears and the machinery, then everybody knows what to do. Everybody knows that this is the way, these are the standards that we have to follow. And yet, if you have those clearly, you know, defined, then it's not that difficult for people to follow. So delegation is definitely something that we're not that good at. I wasn't very good at it. I had to get good at it. You know, I had to learn how to be that way. And a lot of it is just in your head. You know, at some point you have to be able to trust others. And the key, like I said, is if you can't trust people, then either you don't trust them at all or you find people that you can trust. And it's a two-way street. You know, they have to be able to trust you just as much as you them. Okay. So, you know, that's kind of what we went over here. You know, the other thing it does is it empowers people. When you trust people to do things, it allows them to do more. They feel more. They feel like they're providing something more than just showing up and, you know, suctioning spit or, you know, filing some paperwork. So if you feel like you're just going to work and not getting much out of it, just like I had told you about us, it's the same for the teams. So when you give people trust and, you can kind of manage it and control it, then they'll provide a lot more for you. Okay. So, that's basically the empowerment and the team as a whole. Okay. And the key with delegation is obviously following up, keeping tabs. You can set up systems for that as well. So, you don't want to just let people, willy-nilly do whatever they want. So, definitely setting up a system where you can follow up, where you can keep people accountable, and, that way you don't have any issues over time. Okay. So there's a nice saying basically that the patient experience will never be greater than the team experience. Okay, and if you read that carefully, it basically says if your team is not firing in all cylinders, if people are depressed, if people aren't happy on the team, your patients will see that. Your patients will feel that. And, at the end of the day, you're going to end up suffering. You will not have a good, happy patient if you don't have a happy team, right? And then, obviously, if you don't have happy patients, I'm sure all of you know in school and with your own experiences, if you don't have a happy patient, then it comes back on you, at the end of the day. So that's the key that I found. The biggest thing that I've seen is building the team morale, building the team experience, making sure they're happy, making sure they're fulfilled, making sure they have a sense of purpose, just like you, creating the value that we provide. And, these are all things that once you package it up and you start sharing with your teams and, you share stories and all that kind of stuff, then you have a much stronger, much more powerful position. Okay. So, sorry about that. And then, one of the things is learning. Always learn. Always know that you don't know. And if you have that mentality, you'll always be better at the end of the day. I learned something today. I'll tell you a story. It's quick. I went into one of my offices, the Cedar Rapids office here in Iowa, and I had a patient, long-term patient. She came. She had some implants done at some point about 20 years ago, and implant-supported dentures. So the abutments were starting to fail, and the denture broke. Okay, and we were going to replace the abutments, and she was so distraught, and she started crying, and I kind of consoled her, and I immediately started to look at how to fix the situation. We got to repair the denture. We got to do this. I had some new abutments ordered, so I was going to replace those and put the new clips in there. But my lab technician, she came in, and the first thing she did with the patient was give her a big hug. And this was this very morning, I realized I approached that completely wrong. That patient needed a hug first and then the fix, not the fix and the hug, so, when we look at what we do and what we provide, all I had to do was give her a hug, and I actually did. The patient, she started laughing and everything, and she's like, you'd give terrible hugs. And so I gave her a really good one next time, and then she was like, yeah, let's fix the denture. But we can learn from everybody around us. My lab technician, she came, she gave her a hug, and then she started fixing. In my head, I kind of consoled her, but I didn't. In my dentist brain, I wanted to fix the thing right away. So even after knowing all these things and studying psychology and all that kind of stuff, in the heat of the moment, sometimes you don't end up doing what the people need. And that's basically learning. I learned that today. And it's not always about learning about how to do things. Initially, obviously, you want to learn more about the practical parts. So, that basically I talked about abundance. When you have enough, when you have more than enough of anything, you're happy to share that. When you have enough of, happiness, money, whatever it is, satisfaction, when you have abundance, then the people around you are better. Okay, everybody is better for you being around. And that's what I feel makes for happy people. Okay. So we had discussed talking about, getting a mentor. You can look at people around you. Always ask people. That's what I did. I just went up and said, hey, I'd like to learn this. And sometimes people said yes, sometimes people said no. All that, I didn't really lose anything by asking. Okay. One thing I'll tell you guys is if you want to learn more about these types of things, I'm happy to share that with you. I'm going to leave my email with you guys. So if you want to contact me, contact me. If you're wanting, if you're need somebody more local, I mean, there's tons of people that are willing to help. So you just have to look for that. Okay. Now, Aspen Dental, obviously, one thing that, everybody kind of asks is, do they get involved in the clinical and all that kind of stuff, and that's one thing I was questioning when I first started, before I started, and they really don't. They're more in the business part. They get in, admin, all that kind of stuff. They do all that, HR, all the things I don't like doing, accounting, all that kind of stuff. So, when I was in private practice, we had 8, 9 people to do that. So we weren't doing our accounting ourselves. We had an accountant. We weren't marketing stuff ourselves. We had somebody to do that. So what the DSO model, especially Aspen, what we do is we make a tight ball, and we kind of put everything in one nice package. So that's where the efficiencies come in. You don't have to have 10 people doing 10 things. So, and then, they've kind of mastered the business side of things, which is a key part of our industry, which if you don't pay attention to, you won't succeed, so, or you won't succeed as much. So, you got to be cognizant of all that. And, the key for us is to treat the patients. Like I told you guys, I'm still treating the patients the same exact way as I was in Canada 15 years ago, as I did today. So the patient care, doing the work, that's on me. Everything else, Aspen can help me with. So just in general, I mean, Aspen, like this was 2016 numbers, but, we're almost at 700 locations nationwide, 650, something like that. The practices are all owned by dentists. We own 100% of the practice. Aspen owns 0. So they're a service organization. They provide us services that we would outsource, in private practices anyways. So, one of the keys is basically learning from others. That's what this says, good artists copy, great artists steal. So, model success with success. People who are successful you want to learn from, and then pick all the good things you can that work for you, and try to avoid the mistakes. So that's basically what that's saying. One last thing, we'll kind of go over. Now here's a picture. These are my 2 kids. That's my son. That's my daughter. This was we were in Arizona over the summer, and I was sitting by the pool with my kids, and this is 7, 8 practices in. I was sitting in the pool, and I realized that I wasn't thinking about my offices. I was playing with my kids. We were eating chicken wings and fries, and the little one was putting ketchup all over her face, and I had to clean all that up. And but that's one of the things that Aspen Dental provides me. Even after owning 7 practices, I can go. I was there for a week. We went for a week. I didn't really think about my practices. That goes back to trust. It goes back to, setting up good systems that are reliable, that work, having, strong dentists in each of the practices that, you can trust and you can delegate. You don't have to pick, you don't have to nitpick everything. So when you start thinking about when I started to think about what makes me happy, it's that, being free to do what I want. And, when I'm not in the office, I don't have to worry about it. I have lots of people that will tell me if anything's going on, and they can deal with all the issues that I generally don't need to. And if I need to deal with something, they got hold of me, right? So this picture, basically, I realized success at that point when I could go away and not have to worry about all these offices. That's basically what, Aspen Dental provides me. Whereas in private practice, if I was in private practice, if I'm away, I shut the office down unless I have partners and all that kind of stuff, So that's the difference, and you have to see where you want to be in that picture. Okay. So, I kind of leave up some additional resources. These are some of the great books that I've read. Take a picture of it, whatever. Very nice books. Good starting point for these ones. 1 Minute Manager, that's a great book. The 5 Dysfunctions of a Team, that's an excellent book, especially when you start working in an office. The Irrefutable Laws of Leadership. Pick a book and do it. It doesn't have to be the best book. It doesn't have to be the best resource. But if you pick one and it works, then that will spark you to do more. So, the additional resources, that's a good one. I look forward to your questions. If you have any questions, please let me know. That's me. Sorry, we weren't able to get the webcam up, but that's my email, shachbahadur@hotmail.com. If you want to send me an email, if you have any questions, I'm happy to help you even after today, because, what my mentor, what my dad, everybody has told me is, like, when you have something that can help somebody, why not share it? So I'm happy to share. If anybody has questions even after today, send me a message.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Bahadur. We do have some time to answer a few questions now, so I just want to invite everyone to type their questions into the Q&A chat function at the bottom of your control panel. And we do have a few questions here already.
Sure.
The first question, how does an associate dentist make a good impact on your practice and your patients?
Okay. So, if you think about what an associate does and, what you want when you want to be an associate, this is what I did when I first started. I started as an associate. It was in a traditional private practice. There's really not much difference between that and here. So my practices, the ones I have, we've had a few associates. I'll tell you their stories. We had one guy that just came last year from Loma Linda in California. He was working here in Iowa. One thing that we do is we allow them to go at their pace. There's no real perfect answer for, one thing I don't do is I don't like to set people up in cookie cutter type things. So we sat down. He came in. He did his work. He had awesome personality. Everybody loved him. The patients loved him. The teams loved him. But he wasn't fully there with confidence and being able to handle, kind of things on his own. So we helped him with that, and we helped him with getting his confidence, building it up. One thing I do is, I like if you want, if, he was fine with it. So I'd assist him in procedures. We talk about cases. We went over treatment planning. We went over treatment presentation, how you how you present the case to a patient, what you say to the patient, what would you not say, some of the words you should use, some of the words you shouldn't use, so things like that. There's not just one thing, and everybody needs something else. We had another associate that started who was great, and now he's the lead dentist in the practice. So, and he actually the one from California, he's in about 9 months he's an MCD, which is basically a lead dentist in one of the other practices. So, you can be quick or you can be fast, but I feel like we want to provide the best care for our patients. And if we can do that, everything else works, so, but there's not one way, so we try to keep them in one, basically like one column. You see so many things. You see, you'll see fillings, you'll see crown preps, whatever you feel comfortable with. Maybe you do endo, maybe you don't. So, I don't want, personally, I wouldn't want to push you to do something that you're not comfortable with, because that's not going to help the patient. But you also have to have a sense of, I need to do this or that, otherwise I'll never learn. So there's a gentle balance with that. And a lot of it is just communication. We talked a lot. Every day we talk, hey, how was today? What happened here? Like, what do you need me for help? Do you want me to sit in with this patient? And, I help with extractions, so I'd suction while he was taking out teeth, and I'd say, maybe you want to try this next time, or maybe you want to use a periotome, or, maybe you want to elevate a little bit more over here. So it's definitely a lot of hands-on stuff, with the procedures and everything else, actually.
Okay, so then is it you as the doctor who then would set the production requirements for the practice?
There's really no production requirements. I mean, it's not something that we have, so it's basically what we generally do is, we'll have a budget that we like to hit, but there's no, like, for instance, as a associate coming out of school, I personally don't like to put a number, say, hey, you got to meet this number. That puts too much pressure on people, especially while you're learning, right? So if you're treating people well, the production will come. The production comes naturally. Like me and my practices, my main goal is treat the patients well, treat the teams well, and we all do well, And then you try to be efficient, right? So what happens is, if you do those things right at the top, then you don't have to worry about the production. If you don't do those things right at the top, then people end up going backwards, hit this number, and then, then you get this, So it's, if you do it the right way, then everything trickles in the right spot. And, like, I personally don't have a number. I don't have, like, hey, you got to hit this number, right? Because I feel like that puts too much pressure on me, on you, on the teams, everything, And obviously we got to pay the bills and all that kind of stuff. So, I mean, we can kind of discuss, these are the things you want to try to get at this kind of level, right? But if you're not doing the right work, if the work is suffering, then you end up having to do it again anyways, right? Or fixing it or having a problem. So that adds more problems. So it's better to be cognizant of that first. It's better to be, improve slowly and do the right thing, and then everything else flows. Now, if you're having major issues, then we'll sit and chat, right? But that's a conversation that, we may have 6 months later, I feel like an associate coming out of school needs at least, 4 to 6 months to kind of get their bearings, right?
All right. Thank you. The next question here, what are the qualities that you'd recommend striving to perfect for a soon-to-graduate dental student looking to go into solo practice?
Okay. So you're wanting to kind of start your own practice, correct? If it's a practice that you're purchasing, then there's going to be certain systems already built. Okay. If it's a practice that's currently already existing, I wouldn't change too much in that practice right away. Okay. Even if you think whatever they were doing was wrong, right? And not wrong ethically, but maybe not efficiently. Okay. If you go into, if you kick in the saloon doors and start shooting it up, you're going to have a lot of issues with the teams, with the patients, whatever. So, if it's that type of practice, then I would take it slowly, change things slowly, definitely look at certain points and start shifting, right? If it's a practice that you're opening from scratch, that's a fairly difficult proposition this day and age. I don't know, that's going to be a pretty hard thing that I personally didn't do myself. So, it's that would be quite hard. The key for you, especially in the beginning, like I told with the previous question, is, you got to be efficient. So in school, we don't learn that well. We learn to do things and we learn not to screw it up, but we're not really learning how to be fast. We're not learning, tricks on how to save time, and, maybe you want to do this and that, or maybe you numb up a patient and you go see this, managing yourself in the day with the schedule, so those are the types of things that, again, if you're by yourself, you really should find a good mentor that can help you with day-to-day things. Maybe they're not in the practice. Obviously, you're by yourself, right? But find somebody that can help you, somebody who's done it. And I think that would be the best thing, Get them a nice steak dinner, do whatever,
Yeah. All right.
Make them happy.
You.
Yeah.
It looks like we have time for a few more questions, so please feel free to type your questions into the chat or Q&A function, and I will relay those on for you. We have another question here. How do you show appreciation for your team? What are your thoughts on recognizing them publicly versus privately?
Okay. So one thing that I do, the best way to, thank somebody is to say thanks, and what I've learned over the years is, actually, I'll give you guys a good trick to do. This is called the 10 penny thing. Okay. 10 penny challenge. So what I learned was you keep 10 pennies in one pocket, in your left pocket. Okay. And throughout the day, you have to give 10 compliments or 10 appreciations or 10 positive affirmations to your teams. Okay, to your, the DAs, whatever. And you take one and you put it away. You'll find that it can be hard to do that 10 times, in a busy day, and so the best way to do it is to do it. Okay, I think thinking about it too much in terms of when to do it and when not to do it doesn't really make a difference. If I say thanks to Sue and Kara is listening, she's gonna feel good too, because I'm gonna get to Kara at some point, right? So it doesn't, when you're doing, I only do negative, like maybe there's an opportunity for this person to improve. That's something you want to take them away and do it privately. If it's thanks or appreciation, say that in front of everyone. Say, look, hey, this was great, or she did this great. When you do that, you have to make sure you include everybody at some point, so that nobody feels left out. But the 10 penny thing works nicely. Stick
Yeah, I
10
like
pennies
that.
in, and move it to the other side, and that forces you to do it. You'll find that, wow, Monday I only had like 5 pennies. So I gotta step up my game, right? And so you gotta measure it. We're very analytical people, you know, emotions aren't always the first thing we think of, at least me, right? So, you know, I'm an emotional person, but when you get busy and working and all that kind of stuff and you have patients waiting, then sometimes that gets forgotten. So that forces you to kind of do it. Hopefully that answers your question.
I think so. I think I'm going to try and squeeze in one more real quick here. Can you please explain how compensation works for a young dentist in a DSO practice like Aspen?
Okay. So typically, you know, for us, we will, you know, most dentists coming out of school will give them a salary, you know, like a daily draw, you know, flat rate. This is how much you make. Again, I feel that works really nicely because they don't have to worry about production. They don't have to worry about this. They don't have to worry about, you know, really going crazy with speed, right? Because you're getting your, you know, substantial income, bulk of it anyways in the beginning. So, you know, you get a salary and you come to work and you do good work, right? If it becomes production-based right away, I feel personally, and we agree, you know, Aspen as a whole, it becomes a liability. You know, you're ending up fixing things, or people are doing things, you know, maybe faster than they should. So that's where this type of model is nice, where, you know, when I first started, we didn't have salaries. You had, like, you know, you did 30-40% of production, and that's it. If you didn't do anything, you didn't get any money, right? So it's a nice guarantee. It's a nice cushion. You know, you're not the fastest person around, right? So, you know, obviously not after 2 weeks. You can't compare that to 15 years. So if you put people in positions where they will fail, there's a higher chance they will fail. If you put people in positions where they will succeed, there's a much higher chance they will succeed, right? And most dentists succeed, right? There's a very low failure, but you don't want to put people in positions where they're forced to do things that they shouldn't, right? So I feel like the way we have it set up, we also have a bonus structure. It's not a lot, but it's nice, you know, if the clinic is doing well and you're doing, you know, you're providing certain things, then you get an increase in, you know, you get a bonus. But majority of the income is your salary. So I feel that works really well, especially in the beginning.
All right, thank you. We just got another follow-up question to that. How do you see the field of dentistry changing for private practice owners, DSOs, et cetera, in the future?
Okay, so, you know, private practice, if you look at medicine and, you know, medical facilities, not just dentistry, like you look at, you know, my brother is a family doctor. He works at an urgent care clinic that's owned by a big corporation, you know, St. Luke's, whatever. Everything's called St. Luke's or Mercy now. So, you know, if you look at that, if you look at eye care, you look at, you know, any kind of medical profession, they're all going down that road, okay? Dentistry is still hanging on to the old traditions. There's nothing wrong with it. There's nothing wrong with being in a private practice. I was in a private practice for many, many years, right? It wasn't that I was sad or I hated it. I had a good life and I enjoyed my patients and my team. But, you know, it's not to the level that, or the freedom, you know, that I have now, you know. So I wouldn't be able to do what I'm doing right now in private practice. Now, if you think about it, the people who start getting on the trend in the beginning usually do much better in the long run. So it's nice because you guys coming out right now, you know, DSOs are more established. You know, Aspen Dental, for instance, it's been around for a long time. It's not going anywhere. It's a very solid organization, right? So, you know, there's a sense of security there that wasn't there 15 years ago, where, you know, it could have gone in any direction. I feel like the private practice model or the private practice setting is going to end up like eye care. It's going to end up like medicine. it's going to end up like all, like chiropractic, all that kind of stuff, like it's all going pharmacies. Think about pharmacies, when I was growing up or even when I was in school, there weren't as many pharmacies that were owned by Walgreens and all these other companies. Now they all own that, right? So you basically have to see which side of the wave you want to be, right? And the nice thing that I've found with Aspen is I still have a private practice, right? It's just being supported by a company that does the things I don't want to do, right? So I'm not treating, in my mind, Aspen Dental is not some corporation, I have my practices, I have my private practices, I have a group practice, right? That's being supported by this company. Now, I don't have experience with all the other companies, so I can't say good or bad, and I won't, but I do have experience here with Aspen, and it's awesome. So, I wouldn't change it. And, it's not like it's perfect. Like any partnership, you don't always agree with every single minute detail, right? But, they're the experts on their side, right? And in any partnership, if you have two people talking, at some point they're going to be like, okay, well, maybe we want to do it this way, maybe we want to do it that way. But if they're the expert on their end, on marketing and all that kind of stuff, they're probably going to get it right most of the time, whereas I may not, right? And on the clinical side, they don't get involved in that. So they're not saying, hey, why did you do a crown over here, right? So, when my philosophy with this is like anything else. If, think of it like getting married, right? You have to find the right partner. And if the partner and you are, if both people benefit, then it works out great. If only one person is benefiting or nobody's benefiting, then it doesn't work. And I've heard of that in other organizations. I've heard of that in other private practices, right? So it's definitely finding the right group, finding the right mentor, finding the right person that can help you. Because I've gone through all those things. I've gone through where, my first practice, it wasn't that it was bad. We still have a great relationship, but I didn't, that place wasn't great for mentoring. So find the right group, find the right person. That's what I would say.
All right. Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Oh, I was just going to say thank you so much, Dr. Bahadur. That is it for our questions. Any final thoughts before we go ahead and wrap this up?
Sure. The key, the last thing I'd like to leave you guys with is find, one thing is to invest in yourself, invest in, spend the time and the energy that will make you better. And in the beginning, unfortunately, you don't know what that is. So then you have to find somebody that can help you with that. Find a good mentor, whoever it is. It doesn't have to be a dentist, but definitely for us, it's a good idea to get a dentist mentor. Make that a priority for yourself. Make that a priority when you're looking for jobs, when you're looking for positions, wherever it is, private practice, solo, whatever. Make sure that whoever you're with or whoever you're connected with can help you build your skills and build your practice and be able to make you a better person at the end of the day. Because that's, at the end of the day, if you're happy, if you're abundant, then you'll make other people happy and abundant.
All right. Thank you so much, Dr. Bahadur, for sharing your time and all of this wonderful information with us. We are getting a few thank yous coming through the chat, so I'll pass those on to you from the attendees. And thank you so much, everyone, for your attention tonight and for Aspen Dental for sponsoring our session. We are going to close with a quick survey, so please provide your feedback before you leave the session. Thanks very much, everyone, and have a great evening. Bye-bye.
Thank you, guys.